Uh, Hi, good afternoon. First of all, thank you to Yanis for the invitation to give this talk. And I will talk about a study case or a storm case called La Purísima. That was the strongest uh, just a second. Okay, the strongest storm registered in the history of the Panama Canal watershed. Okay? So basically, a little bit of an outline of what I'm going to talk today. A little bit of Panama and the water resources, Panama Canal and its watershed. The Purísima storm case, what is the meaning of the term? What was the characteristic, the impact on the Panama Canal operation, and impacts on water quality. There is another point I will mention at the end is the impact on the communities there in the Panama Canal watershed. I will talk about that. I won't mention during the presentation because reason of time, basically. No? Uh, Panama is a country with an extensive water resources. No, that is determine a lot of the Panamanian economy, not only the Panama Canal but also hydropower. About 60% of the energy comes from hydropower in Panama. So water determine a lot. Is very important for the economy. We have the second largest water offer in Central America and one of the largest in the world, about 50,000 cubic meters of water per capita, per person. No? And we have a precipitation in the country, an average of 3,000 millimeters, and that can go from around 1,000 to 7,000 depending on when you are in the country. No? This is the Panama Canal watershed. Here, basically, there are two things I would like you to see. The Gatun Lake, basically, is where the water for the Panama Canal operation comes from. Also, you have the Alajuela Lake that also complement the Gatun Lake and is where the major drinking water treatment plant is in Panama. So we get our water in the city major from that is about 250 million gallons per day. That's a big plant. And this is called the Upper Chagres watershed, also Panama Canal watershed. The main river is the Chagres, so we call that the Chagres watershed too. And this is basically the upper watershed, Chagres basin, and basically it's important for you to have this. No? And we have uh, so we have here a map showing you the precipitation, the average precipitation in the watershed. As you can see, you clearly can see, for example, this area is about 4,500 millimeters per year of water, and you can see it's going down in the lower part of the watershed. The upper part is the one that it receives more water during the year. Um, how it works, the Panama Canal, this is just an illustration. Basically works by gravity. Is an 80-kilometer channel that connect the Atlantic with the Pacific or vice versa. There is a difference of 26 meters above sea level from Gatun Lake, and you can see from it's fresh water that moves the canal, and everything is from gravity. Basically, every time that a vessel pass through the canal per transit is 55 million gallons of water is expended. It's spent for that. The fresh water every time a vessel pass through the Panama Canal, and I think they give you an idea how the water is used from the Gatun Lake and Alajuela Reservoir, the one I showed you before. Basically, 50% is for cheap traffic or for the Panama Canal operation, 30% is use of hydropower, 12% are discharge, and 6% is for the drinking water purposes. In terms of importance, of course, this is the most important, the drinking water part, and follow cheap traffic. These two are optional. You just use that when you have excess water in the watershed. You can produce some electricity and sell that. And when you discharge, basically, you are losing money because you don't get any value from that. But sometimes you have to do that, like you are going to see. La Purísima storm case. What is the origin of the term La Purísima? La Purísima is basically, and this is very well known for basically country women in the country, farmers, and historically that's called La Purísima to a storm that occurs 5 days before or 5 days after the day of the or that we celebrate the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary. Is also a Mother's Day in Panama, and that is taken by reference by popular wisdom as the time when the last big storm. Basically, after that you start the summer. No, in Panama, and you indicate the end of the agricultural practices of traditional crops. So it's an event that usually occurs every year. You have a storm there. What happened this time? This was a larger storm than usually is. What happened? You can see September 7. This is the country of Panama. This is the storm, as you can see here. December 8th. Basically, you have the water over Panama. This area is the worst one. The more rainfall you get. And December 9, then also those 3 days, we receive tons of water, as you can see here. This is basically the different station that the Panama Canal has to measure rainfall in the Panama Canal watershed. As you can see, go from 77, and we are talking about this was from December 7 to December 8, midday at noon of both days. And you go from 77, the city of Panama is basically around here. And you can go to up to 760 millimeters in one day in this area. So basically in the city, you feel, I mean, some rainfall coming, but you didn't believe how hard it was raining in the upper watershed of the Panama Canal at that time. And this is for the Madden Dam, the Alajuela Lake, and the dam here. These are stations that basically deal with the amount of water that went through that. No, this is the Mount Hope or Esperanza. I'm sorry, the Esperanza station. That was the one that registered the highest amount of precipitation at that time. This became the strongest storm in the history of the Panama Canal. There are two, in red you can see what is called the Chico station. That is a station that is basically, is this one here, one of the ones that loses, that it was lost there, and they calculate that how later. And also by in the Alajuela Dam, and it basically is around here where they measure that. But what you can see, these are the amount of water by volume that you discharge or pass through this station or that dam in 3 days period. No, I'm sorry. This is during the year, and you can see the red one. You can see is the maximum 2010, and this comes from 1933. And from 1966, you have in the Alajuela Dam or Madden Dam that is called. And from 1966, you see the difference with 2010. I mean, the amount of discharge that you have at that time. And that shows you the magnitude of this storm in comparison with what you have historically in that watershed. No? Also, the second factor, in not only that was a huge storm, but also the fact that at this time of the year, basically all these reservoirs are were in the summer. So you try to have your reservoir a very high level. What you see in red is an historically curve that the Panama Canal has to basically have an idea of how to manage water. If you have below this red line, you cannot generate hydropower, you cannot discharge, you can use the water for transit only, no. And if you are above that, you can make some extra money with hydropower in this case. And you can see here in red you have hydropower. In these black lines here are when you have discharge. As you can see, the amount of discharge they have to make at this point to try to maintain this level, because you have the reservoir very, very full at that time, and you need to follow it, because after this you have no rain, and you need to secure the operation of the canal during the dry season, and that's the reason they follow this, and basically that's their Bible to how to manage these reservoirs. This is basically the frequency and analysis, the return period of this storm, and they calculate it was with the Chico station they have data from 1933 to 2010. That was a storm of a frequency of return of 325 years. So it was a big event. That was an extreme event that we have there. No? This picture is the Chico station, and you can see a boat here, you can see a person here, and imagine the water went up to this. It was December 29, that was 20 days after this happened, and you can see the difference in elevation here, and this gives you some perspective of how that was, no? How big it was. Due to this, the main effect impact on the Panama Canal operation caused the Panama Canal to use the culverts or the sewer logs that they use basically to fill out the logs. When you want to fill out a log, you have to use this culvert from the floor of the log, and they have to use that to also discharge water. Basically, they have to start using the logs also to discharge some water, and for that reason, they basically have to temporarily suspend the transit of ships for 18 hours during this storm. This was the fourth time that this happened. Before it was happening in the 1920s and 1930s. Also, this happened that the Panama Canal has to basically suspend transit for a situation like this, but this was the worst that had happened in the history of the canal. No, basically, and this is just an example, 150,000 cubic feet per second in Madden, that's in the Alajuela, will fill 3 Olympic swimming pools in 2 seconds. That's just an example. And you can see here the amount that you were discharging. This is with the floodgates from the dam, all of them open, the 14, and then they start using the logs, basically, or the culverts there, to start also throwing water, and you see you get to a level of 232,000 cubic feet. So basically 1 swimming pool per second that you were discharging, and you can follow here that even with this discharge, the level in these lakes were going up. That was a really scary situation, because you were trying to do as much as you can, trying to throw water away, but you were swamped, basically. I mean, there was tons of water coming, and that was when the incident command system in Panama Canal, the emergency came, and this in blue is when also the Panama Canal has to be suspended the transit at this point. No? And then it started on December 9. These are December 9, and this situation start coming under control then, no, at this time. No? Now, the effect on water quality, and this is, basically this storm fired more than 500 landslides in the upper basin of the Alajuela Reservoir, the upper basin of the Panama Canal watershed. And this region is covered 85% by mature forest. So it wasn't a deforested area. It was a well-conserved area. There was, at the beginning, many people start saying in Panama that was because of deforestation, but no. What the major rain was in an area that was covered by mature forest. This is a map of the land use here, and you can see in this green, very hard green, the area with mature rainforest. So basically, it was a very good area. What the basis for this was found in this paper that some studies were made in Puerto Rico, that when you have rainfall greater than 200 millimeters and mountains with a slope greater than 12 degrees, or 20% in the size of you lose 20 centimeters vertically for every meter horizontally. That's 20%. That is when you have more than 12 degrees. Then they found in Luquillo Mountains in Puerto Rico that a landslide started being produced. And of course, this was a storm that come up with this characteristic. No? In some point, 760 millimeters, 3 times what the minimum was they found here. And also, this is a map basically of the different slope within the Panama Canal watershed. And it's hard to see, but you see all these color, a little bit yellow and red, are the ones that you have a huge or very high slope here, up to 250%. So this is something that is considered to be the cause of what happened. It's not only the biggest storm, but also the fact of the terrain and the amount of water that you have at this point. These are some pictures of the landslide, January 21st. A month after this, you can see some picture of this. All these came, vegetation, trees, everything came down, and that created the water quality problem that I will show you in the following slide. This is also normal, the average production of sediments. As you can see, also many of the sediments, I think 50% of the sediments are produced also in the upper watershed, no, of the canal. Basically, the maximum or the amount of suspended sediment, you see 15,000 when the average that you find in the Alajuela Reservoir is about 210. This was a huge thing, and this was what I call a real extreme event. More than about 72% of the annual suspended sediment were produced during this storm, and there was another storm not as strong as La Purísima, but since the mountains were already affected by the Purísima, then also hit a little bit hard in the sediment production then at the end of that year. And this is the water intake in Panama of the major drinking water, and they have to basically the plant basically collapsed. We were without water for about 2 months after this. As you can see, this picture was August 25th, and you can see the difference between this and the amount of sediment you have here, December 20. You see, this is another, remember, this is the water intake that you can see here closer or here. This is, from a little bit, but that gives you a perspective of the Alajuela Lake and the Madden Dam. And you can see how the water color is changing a little bit. And this was 2 months after this. The situation was a little bit better at that time. But still, the amount of sediment took some time to get rid of that. There was some tests that were done after this. This was really scary because with the settling that they found, they considered that it was going to take 3 years for that to settle. But the situation here is that the water, of course, was moving. This test was basically the water sitting there, so it wasn't that bad. No? This is an example of what it was done. In 2 days, basically, there was discharged 25 million of cubic feet of water in 2 days. That is basically the capacity of the lake. That gives you the magnitude of the water that we have to discharge at that time to basically deal with this. And this is just to show you how usually in this situation turbidity behave. The fine sediment usually go to this part of the dam. And what they have to do is to start generating electricity to get rid of that water. They basically start moving water until they clean, until the turbidity of the water went down. No? And this is the effect on turbidity. Basically, this is the slopes, 16 units of turbidity per day. In this, at this time, went to 4.4, 1.5, and went to basically 150 to basically 25. I think the plan was designed for 40. So you cannot use this until this time. Basically, you can try to start doing some tests with the plan at that time, and this is in January already. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude. This is something also important is the amount of also, since came a lot of trees and stuff from the upper Chagres, also you start having some methane produced after 2 months, and that's normal in this case. Or when you flood an area also that you have vegetation, usually you get this. No, my special thanks to the Water Resources Division of the Panama Canal for providing many of the slides. When I went for information, they're like, oh, but don't worry, we can give you much of the information for this. So I would really like to thank them. And basically, as a conclusion, I would like that there were three effects here. The first one on the Panama Canal operation, you can see they were prepared for that, or they did what they have to do. In that case, they know more or less the water quality effect. Really, they have to deal with that as it happens. I mean, there was no, I mean, this was the magnitude of the event, at least the experience you have it now, but that was a situation that was very critical because it was triggered by the storm. The problem with the Panama Canal was triggered by the storm, but also by the time of the year that you have your reservoir almost at full capacity, and this happened. Of course, these two situations create that, no, and also where the rainfall fall that was in the upper Chagres. And the third impact that I'm not showing there for time reason is the effect on the population in this area. There were, and that was a nice job that the Panama Canal Authority did at that time, because they have prepared for this. They have the information of what these people have there in their houses, so they can basically give that all that they lost back, and the early alert system also work fine, and they can go to places, secure places at night, because that was at midnight. They have to move some people there, and I think that was important, and that show you that preparation is very important in this case. During this storm, to finish, there was another watershed next to this one. And of course, this wasn't managed, or this wasn't the Panama Canal watershed. We depend too much on that. And you have different agencies of the government, and even though it wasn't as big a storm as this one, the response wasn't as efficient as this one. No, and that show you too that sometimes the way you manage your watershed, or how you give competences also, is very critical in these cases. No? And with this, I would like to thank you. That's what I have. So thank you.